Hello everybody, hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at your spring 2020 forecast, which is going to include your temperature and precipitation anomaly forecast, as well as your overall forecast at the end of the video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. Now, we're going to get right into it here with your temperature or your precipitation anomaly forecast. Now, over parts of the western United States, I am expecting some slightly below average conditions as far as precipitation. I do think you will be a bit drier than normal, not too noticeable if you're just in this light brown shade here, but definitely as you get into this moderately below average area and this darker brown, you're getting into well below average, and you're getting more noticeable over parts of California, southern Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. I expect you guys to be the driest out of the entire United States as we get anywhere from the 1st of March, which would be the first day of meteorological spring, all the way until the first day of June, which would be the last day of meteorological spring, and that would also start summer. So let's get into your above average precipitation now, and this will cover much of the eastern and northern United States, where I am expecting more precipitation than normal. You will have an increase in the amount of severe storms that you have over the south, and I also think the you will see a lot of severe storms, especially over northern Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then getting into Kansas and Missouri, as well as a little bit there of Louisiana. And of course, you're going to see severe weather over parts, over other parts as well. But really, the heart of the severe weather looks to be in this area over northern Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and Kansas, where I do think you're going to see the most severe weather this spring. And of course, that is going to carry on into the summer. Now, we will have the most precipitation, the moderately above average precipitation over parts of the Ozarks and through parts of the deep south, where I am expecting moderately above average precipitation. And this is where I think you're going to see a lot of storms set up, and I also think you're going to get a lot of systems to really ride through this area and dump quite a lot of precipitation. And you've already seen quite a bit of rain over these areas through the winter time, so this is only going to add to it. And definitely I'll be making my monthly forecast. I'll be making my April forecast and my May forecast, as well as my June forecast. I'll make them every single month, and that'll give you a more in-depth view on what each month should look like as you get into spring. Now, here's your temperature anomaly forecast. I'm expecting above average conditions from coast to coast, basically, except for the central and northern United States, where I am expecting just near normal or even below average, as we'll get to in a little bit. But really, from the east coast down through the deep south and the south central United States, and then into parts of the west, I am expecting slightly above average conditions in terms of temperature. So it is going to be a bit warmer, and I really expect that to happen right around late April and into parts of May, and then getting through the summer. I think it's going to be the warmest over parts of the east coast through the deep south, and then through the west coast, where I am expecting those warmer conditions. Now, for each coast, I am expecting moderately above average conditions, and this is where I expect it to be even more noticeable that you're above average. But I do think, especially over the northeast, mid Atlantic, and southeast, I am expecting actually a colder start to spring, which would be for March. And you can go check out my March forecast, it's on my channel. But I am expecting actually a colder start to spring, but definitely I think it's going to heat up as you get into April and May, and that's really going to also fuel some severe storms, which we'll get to in the overall forecast at the end of the video. For the West Coast, I also think it's also going to be warmer, but I think it's going to be more long-lasting warmth, and I don't think you're going to really get a cool down in March. Now, as we get into the north central United States, I am expecting some below average conditions in terms of temperatures, and I'm only going to put one shade here of below average because this is definitely going to change, and I have lower confidence in this below average area. But I do think it will be cold over parts of the north central United States and getting to the Great Lakes, where you should be expecting some colder than average conditions as we get into your spring 2020. Now, let's start uncovering what all these colors on this map mean. This is your overall forecast, and this should give you a good idea of generally what to expect as you get into your March. Now, again, this is going from the 1st of March all the way until the 1st of June. So definitely that is going to be the time period that this is going to be taking place in. So I am expecting warmer, dry conditions as we get to California, Nevada, and southern Arizona. And this is where I think you're going to get a mixture of both warmer conditions and drier conditions, and it'll really be a mild spring for you guys, and I think you will have fairly warm spring, and you shouldn't have to deal with too much precipitation over those areas. Now we're just going to be dealing with dry conditions. It's not going to be too overly warm over these areas, so I think you will definitely get some warmer days, but I don't think it's going to be as overwhelming as areas in the southwest. So it's just going to be mainly a dry period in the spring, and I think that'll definitely give you a bit of a break from what you've seen in January and late December when you guys were really getting pummeled with a ton of precipitation. I think you're gonna get a break as we get into March, April, May. Now, I am expecting less mountain snow here over parts of the Rockies, and this is just because I do think you're going to have those drier than normal conditions. You're not going to get as many systems going from the Pacific Northwest or the Southwest and moving straight across the country, which is usually where the Rockies get a lot of their snow. I think you're going to have more systems originate from the Southeast Colorado, Northeast New Mexico, and Northern Texas and Oklahoma area. Right around that area is where I expect most of your systems to actually originate. So I don't think you're actually going to get that much mountain snow as we get into the springtime, and as well it's warming up, so you're going to have to get higher and higher up in elevation as we start getting into April and May to get your snowfall. Now I am expecting flip-flop conditions over parts of the north central United States, and this basically means I think you're going to be flipping from colder conditions, warmer conditions. It's really going to be just all over the place as you get into March, April, and May, and I do think it's just going to be a pretty wild spring for you guys, and you guys can definitely see a lot of temperature swings, some big storms, and definitely it's going to be a pretty wild ride as you get into your spring. Now, I am expecting some late snowstorms, and you see this quite often in winters where this area of Wyoming, Nebraska, the Dakotas, and into Minnesota really get hammered with some pretty good snowstorms and blizzards potentially. Now, this happens usually in the early part of fall or early to mid part of fall, and then also the early to mid part of spring when it's still cold enough in these areas to see snowfall, but also you're getting your storm tracks to move a little bit further to the north, so you actually get a lot of moisture being pulled up from the Gulf, and you actually see a lot of snowfall in parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota, where I am expecting some late snowstorms, and these could potentially be big ones. Now, a good example of these types of systems would be Winter Storm Aubrey, or it was actually a blizzard over many of these areas, and you guys saw 2-3 feet of snowfall, and that was in the early to mid part of fall. So it's really going to be the same setup pretty much, I think, for many of these areas. Maybe not 2-3 feet, but definitely a couple of good late snowstorms in spring. Now, we are expecting 1 or 2 snowstorms over these areas, and this is mainly going to happen in March, maybe early April, depends on what kind of setup you get, but definitely do expect a late snowstorm or two for your standards over parts of the central United States, and that would be for Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri as well. Now, I am expecting the hardest severe weather to, again, be in this area that I was talking about while we're going through the precipitation and temperature anomaly forecast. I do think this is really going to be where you get the most severe weather to set up, where you have that boundary between cold air to the north and that warm air to the south. That's where you get your severe weather to set up, wherever you get that boundary between warm and cold air. That warm rising air and that cold sinking air really is a good setup for some severe weather, and I think that's really going to set up over northern Texas, pretty much all of Oklahoma, southern Kansas, and into southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas. Now, I am expecting colder conditions than normal, and it should be pretty chilly over this spring, and I think it's going to be noticeable at times, but again, you will have a couple warm-ups here and there, but for the most part, it should be colder over parts of the Great Lakes and northern United States. Now, I am expecting warmer conditions again to the south, and this will really set up that severe weather boundary, and warmer conditions will be setting up over New Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana, and that'll again aid some moisture and some pretty good storms over parts in that red area where you are expecting severe weather. Now, average conditions over parts really in between all these shades of cold, warm, wet. This is where I just think it's going to be a pretty average spring, so you will pretty much average out to average precipitation and average temperatures. Now, I am expecting a late start to spring if you do live over parts of the Northeast and Mid Atlantic, and this is just again because we are expecting a colder than average March. So I think you really are going to start to feel like spring as you get into your April, mid to late April is when I really think spring is going to officially start for you guys in the Northeast and Mid Atlantic. It's when it's really going to start to warm up over your area. Now, I'm expecting in your final layer here warm and wet conditions to occur over parts of the southeast, and this is where I really expect a lot of systems to just stay, and you could actually get a couple of stationary cold fronts that just bring a lot of moisture for a couple of days, and that could definitely bring in a lot of precipitation over these areas. And I think it's going to be, you're definitely going to have those warmer than normal conditions, and really wherever these storms set up, and I think you're going to be on the southern side of these systems, which will allow you to be much above average compared to your average as far as precipitation. Anyways, guys, that is going to wrap the video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turn on notifications to never miss this video when I do upload. Anyways, guys, that is going to wrap the video, and I hope you guys really do enjoy your day. Goodbye.